Namaskar. Welcome to the second episode of Musical Musings. It has been a great start for my new venture as I received so many calls and messages for my first episode with Pandit Sudhir Nayak. Many senior artists and music students and my well-wishers called me and messaged me, and they have given me more strength to do more and more episodes of musical musings. As you know, today I am very honored to have Pandit Praveen Godkhindi ji, one of the foremost artists of our country, and I am really proud that we both belong to the same state, Karnataka, and he has been a role model for many of youngsters like me. So without much ado, I would like to invite Pandit Praveen Godkhindi ji to have a conversation about his journey in the music field. Namaste Praveen ji.
Namaskar Dhananjay, how are you?
I am fine. First of all, thank you so much for taking out time and blessing me with your presence in my new venture, which I have started a week back, and this is the second episode. And I am truly thankful to you once again for joining me in this episode and sharing your experiences in the music field. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dhananjay bhai. It's a pleasure for me to share my ideas about music and my journey. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
Praveen ji, as we know, you belong to a musical family. Your father, Pandit Venkatesh Godkhindi ji, I can say that he is the tallest flute artist that Karnataka has produced, because he has produced so many students, and he himself was a very great musician, because I had a very few interactions with him, but I know how knowledgeable musician he was.
Yes.
So if you can tell me a little bit about your father and your musical learning experiences you had with him to start with.
See, my father initially started playing the harmonium with many vocalists. He used to accompany legendary musicians like Gangubai Hangal ji, Basuraj Rajguru ji, Bhimsen ji, and on a few occasions he has also accompanied with Pandit Jasraj ji and Kishori Tai, Jitendra Abhishek ji, all of them. So what happened because of all that was all that gaiki, all that vocal music that he heard from close quarters, he wanted to vent it out. So he started singing also. He took vocal lessons from one Pandit Narayan Rao Mujumdar of Dharwad. But a sudden change came when he happened to pick up a flute and started trying to play it. So what happened in that journey was that he couldn't find a guru for flute in Karnataka. So he used to try and play, or in his own words, I would say, he would try to sing through the flute. Whatever music he had of the Kirana style, he adapted that entire vocal music into his flute. And mind you, it was by trial and error method, because he didn't know the techniques of flute. He didn't have anyone to teach him. So he would try it on his own, and he succeeded. And even during my childhood days, I used to see him practice for hours. And my best moments with him was that we used to have a lot of interactions, and he used to spend a lot of time with me and answer all my questions about music. We used to listen to concerts together, and because he was working in All India Radio, he had the access to many recordings, and many artists were his friends, and many of the musicians, they used to stay in our house, and we used to have mehfils at our house. So that was my advantage. I grew up listening to all those maestros and all those discussions, and my father was multifaceted. He not only played the harmonium, he sang. He was probably the only classical bansuri artist who's also graded as a classical vocalist. So he was good at both.
Oh.
Yeah. And then he was also a composer, a graded composer from Akashvani. He composed several Konkani, Marathi, Kannada, Dasar Padaguru, Bhav Gite, and all that. So all that, during my childhood, gave me a lot of inputs for me to think about music and develop my own style. So that is why you see me also doing a lot of those things. I compose for music, for films and for light music. I do a lot of fusion. So it's all thanks to my father's initiatives.
Was it the same case with you also, that you learned vocal first and then you started learning flute?
Well, I would say it happened parallelly. Like he would, whenever we would sit to practice, he would play a phrase and then sing it. And then I had to play it and sing it as well. So to get the actual sangati, or the essence of that raga, he used to make us sing the phrase and then play the same on the flute. So that is why our gaiki is very close to vocalist singing.
Okay. As you mentioned, Narayan Rao Majumdar ji, many people may not know here, he was also guru of my guru Pandit Vinayak Purvi ji. So in that case, I think your father and my father are Guru Bandhus.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you started learning from your father, how was the talim like? We normally hear that the older generation teachers were very strict. They were, you couldn't ask any questions or anything. Because I have heard all these stories from my Guruji also, that it was only a one-way traffic, where only, Guru used to speak and teach. You should just listen and learn whatever he tells. There was no two-way traffic at that time.
Yeah.
I know, even though you are his son, was it the same thing with you also?
No, luckily my father was an evolved musician. He didn't. He always liked to interact with the students, and he would want them to ask questions and clear the doubts. And more so because he was available for me 24/7. I had that access to him and that freedom. And both of us enjoyed discussing from a very young age. And he would give me some smaller tasks during my childhood, that you listen to this recording today, and when in the evening when I come back from the office, tell me what all you heard, what were the salient features, and I would try and grasp. And so that's how our relationship was. It was never hardcore, you have to sit for 3 hours today and finish this. It was more of a very cordial give and take, and I used to enjoy that. Of course, at a later stage, when music became very serious, when I took it very seriously, when I kind of was on the threshold of choosing the career, at that point I started to practice a lot, regularly in the morning and evening. So at that point of time, he was giving very crucial inputs, and that's why I stuck to Todi in the morning and Yaman in the evening for almost 2 years.
Oh, okay. So,
Because,
sorry, please. Sorry.
Yeah, because Todi for flutists it's very difficult because of the komal swaras, re, ga, and dha. It is very difficult to get the right shruti. So he wanted me to understand the position of re, position of ge, ga, and all. So that's why I had to spend a lot of time. Only during that phase, it was more like a strict guru shishya relationship where he would not accept if I had taken lightly. But luckily for me, even I was involved by then. That was during when I was around 15, 16.
So, when you started learning from your father, or your father started teaching you, it was like, whether you were already interested and you only said that, no, I want to learn or something, or it was your parents who felt that you should learn music or something like that. How did that happen? You are learning.
No, because I was exposed to music all around, 24/7 something. It was always about music and nothing else in my house. And even before I was born, I think I picked up the nuances of music. So sooner or later, I would have become a musician because it was in my genes. But then picking up the flute also was quite interesting because I started with the tabla first, and my brother started the flute. And and then after a while, my father realized that my sense of shruti is kind of better than my brother's, in the sense that I would pick up the notes a little faster. And so then he decided, at one particular point of time, I was playing both the flute and tabla. My brother also was playing the flute and tabla. We had two sets because he didn't want us to fight. So that's how then eventually we settled that he'll play the tabla and I'll play the flute, and that stayed along.
Okay. That means you are a person who plays tabla, who sings, who plays flute. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I also, just like my father, I also started accompanying him on the harmonium. Whenever he used to sing, I used to play the harmonium. So that also helps, to get the sense of the swaras with relation to sa, how far is ga, how far is ma, and all. To get that sense, it really helps if you know the harmonium. So it was an all-round training program for me under my father.
Very nice. Now coming to the instrument itself, what I feel is always people, the audience, or even some of few of the artists, they come and they listen to your concert, say, "Arey, Praveen ji ne kya mast bajaya, bahut acha." Then, you get good comments and they just go back with a good memory of music. But my intention is, it might look little basic question, but I want to know, understand about the instrument itself. Like, everybody says it's made of bamboo, all these things. But if you can explain a bit about the instrument, a normal flute, then it would be a great help for many of the audiences who are listening to us.
Yeah, see, basically flute, if it trace the history, it has come from it is basically a folk instrument. And it's a very natural instrument because there's no leather, there are no strings attached per se, So it's a pure, natural earthen instrument and very organic. So generally it has 6 holes and 1 blowing hole. So that's usually the flute that we find in India. But then when we come to classical music, Carnatic classical people, they use shorter flutes, high pitch flutes, higher octave flutes. In Hindustani, we use the lower pitch, which was started by Pandit Pannalal Ghosh ji. So my father added a few things to it, and because of which we are able to achieve the gaiki, ang, gamaks and means, and also bring out the tans, khatkas, murkis and everything more effectively because of some discovery and some additions that my father made. So generally we go to my flutes are all from Sirsi, Karnataka. All the bamboos are from Sirsi. So one of my students, my father's student and my student, one Mr. Hegde, he lives in Sirsi. So we go there once in a while and we get the bamboos, season them. We ask him to season, and then we sit together and manufacture the flutes. So all my flutes are more or less manufactured by me because I get it tuned according to my requirement. So, and whatever extra needs to be done, I do it myself. So one thing that I've learned from my father again is to prepare a flute, to manufacture a flute and to maintain it. That's also an art. Most of the flutists depend on others. It is a very simple instrument to look at, but it's quite complicated when you play because so many factors come into play. Every millisecond we have to be attentive and we have to keep listening to the tanpura and play because slight change in your breath, slight change in the position of the flute, slight change in the position of your head, everything affects the shruti. So it is a very Herculean task to master the flute and play it in tune. And that I think is the reason why it is a very melodious instrument and it touches your heart. The tone of the flute, that is the beauty of the instrument.
Now you said there are 6 holes here in the normal flute. You also said that you have made certain changes. Is that changes in the number of holes, or the number is the same, or anything else you have modified as per your?
No. There's an additional hole that my father made. It's called the thumb hole. I use my thumb to close it. There's one Madhyam hole which Pandit Pannalal Ghosh ji had discovered long back, and he used it for the Tivra Madhyam in the Mandra Saptak. So likewise, my father added this hole, and so with the help of that, we are able to get the mean and continuity till Pancham, which is very essential in many ragas like Miya Malhar and Shuddha Kalyan. So that really helps, and I think that's a great boon, and the whole Bansuri fraternity should be grateful to my father for having brought that to light.
The flute, the diameter itself, does it change or it remains same for, I have seen that the smaller flute, the diameter is less. So for the higher pitches, you use the small flute.
Correct.
So the diameter has to change, the volume changes or anything like that?
See, with the diameter, when the diameter is small, the pitch has to be higher because then you cannot make a low pitch flute with a smaller diameter. It has to be a higher octave flute. So smaller diameter and higher pitch are proportional. So when the diameter becomes big, then the lower pitch flutes is what you look at. And when the diameter goes on becoming bigger, then you are able to reach the Mandra Saptak. But then the length also goes on increasing. So that is where I came up with this invention recently, where I created what I call as alto bansuri, wherein I pitch the Mandra Saptak and that is why, because it's the length is going to increase, I made a U shape out of it. So I turned the bamboo like this so that the length is more, but then it is handy. You can still reach the holes.
That J-shaped one which you play.
Correct.
Is that also made of bamboo only?
Right now, the one which I am working is made out of PVC. PVC, but because to get a bamboo of that diameter, almost 4.5-5 inches diameter, and that length is difficult. But the version that I had made before this as an experiment was of bamboo. We took a long bamboo, cut it, and then joined it to make a U out of it, and I played that also.
There is one question from one of our viewers asking, sir, what's the difference between Bansuri and Venu? Is there a difference?
No, they are just terminologies according to me. Venu, Murli. In Kannada, the Pillangovi is also a word associated with flute. So Bansuri, but especially in Karnataka, I have seen that people refer to Kodalu as the smaller one or the Venu as the smaller one, Bansuri as the bigger one. But Bansuri is just a word, Hindi word. Bansi, Bansuri, they're all they are just terminologies. It's got nothing to do with the length.
Correct. One more thing I want to discuss with you is that apart from your musical, prodigies, that you are a singer, you're a vocalist, you can play harmonium, tabla. I know as a composer you are one of the best in India. So one other point which I want to bring here is your education. Education in terms of schooling. What I'm trying to. You are a Bachelor of Engineer. That's BE in Electronics and Electricals, if I'm not mistaken. How does the education, whether it has an impact on your music, positive or negative or whatever, or how do you think that it can contribute to your music?
See, definitely, I read somewhere that maths or science and music, the same part of the brain works, So, a person who can be a very good musician can also become a very good engineer or a scientist. So, my role model for my education per se as a musician was legendary Pandit Udaditya Mukherjee ji. So during my schooling days, I happened to hear one of his concerts in Hyderabad, and that's where they announced that he had completed his ME, gold medalist in metallurgy. So he also, that inspired me that, we can definitely do both. That was one incident which stayed with me, that yes, engineering, I can. Luckily for me, I was good in academics from the beginning, so that was an advantage that I had. And for me, it never affected, my tryst with the music programs, the all-night mahfils. Even during my engineering days, I used to. Being in Dharwad, I had this fortune of attending many concerts, performing in late night festivals, listening to maestros. I didn't want to miss that chance. Drawing sheets and all. It was a wonderful journey, trying to sail in those two boats. I enjoyed my time. It was difficult. It was not easy, but it's something that is, I would say, it's not impossible. You can, because somehow they are connected. My musical mind always it kind of give me an impetus to do better in engineering as well.
There is one question from one of the viewers. Says, sir, I have a brass flute with C sharp and Venu of F sharp, but sounds the same. How is that, sir?
No, it depends on which with which finger. What is written on? You hear me?
Yeah, there was some break.
Hello,
now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So it is basically don't go by what is written on the flutes, because sometimes the pitches are mentioned according to the when all the holes are closed.
Okay.
So a C sharp mentioned when all the 6 holes are closed, or a F sharp mentioned only the 3 holes are closed, will sound the same. So sometimes the manufacturers make that mistake of putting the transposing. Basically they consider something else as and write it. So it's basic. It depends on how you which fingering you it as sa.
One more very basic question. Some people play on the right and some people play on the left. So is there a reason, or it's like which side of which hand is yours is strong? Is it like that?
It's more like writing with the right hand or left hand. It's just a habit. It has got nothing to do with it's just an habit. My father, because he didn't have a guru, he just picked up the flute and started playing like this. And I saw him and I started playing like that. And my son now saw both of us and he also started playing like that. So there's no particular reason why we all play the same way. But we all play the opposite of what you generally see as Lord Krishna holding the flute. All his pictures, his flute comes on his right, whereas our flute comes on our left.
Correct. One more thing which is very important for flute artists and vocalists, both of us, is the breathing. That's one of the most important part of both vocalists and flute artists.
Right.
How do you train? Is there a separate way that you train for the having this? Because I have heard or I have seen one of your posts which says about circular breathing, which you have talked that you have tried. Can you please briefly explain about what is? How do you practice the breathing exercises or circular breathing? If you can briefly tell us about it.
See, basically, to be a good flautist, you have to have a very good control on how you exhale, the amount of breath that you inhale, and then the way you exhale will directly affect the pitch, volume, resonance of the flute. So pranayama is a very good exercise for flutists as well as vocalists. But I generally suggest for flutists to do pranayama with the flute itself. Take a deep breath and stretch the sa uniformly. So the sa should be in tune and it should not vary. There should not be, it should be like a steady and straight line. There should not be variations. And try to hold that note for a long time. And doing that, you will increase your lung capacity also, and also your breathing and your breath management when you're playing longer phrases becomes easy. And as far as circular breathing is concerned, that I picked up because I was fascinated by a few folk instrumentalists that employ that technique. What is surprising is it is a very true Indian folk art of circulating your breath. It essentially means you use your cheeks to store the air here and use that as reservoir while you breathe from your nose. So you breathe, store into your lung, and while you are blowing, store partially into your cheeks. And while you breathe from your nose, use this air to keep this note continue. So that note will never get cut because you're continuously exhaling. So that inhaling and exhaling happens at the same time. That is the beauty of circular breathing. Many wind instrumentalists have adopted that technique in Western music as well. But it is basically, I have seen generally, if you observe, the person who is giving the shruti behind a Shehnai player, he is holding the sa for almost the entire concert for 45 minutes, 1 hour. His cheeks are blown and he's continuously giving like a surpeti. So he's that is circular breathing. He doesn't need to. He can, it is like a harmonium bellow. So he can do it constantly, continuously. And then there are people who play the shank or the conch in temples for 45 minutes continuously. So this circular breathing is much easier for people who play the wind instruments with closed lips, like Shehnai, saxophone, clarinet. So if you have closed your lips, then you can store it in your cheeks and then use that to do the circular breathing. For flute, since our lips are open, we try to store it here. So the amount is very less. So it's a very difficult art. But I wanted to master it because I wanted to bring out, some enigma, some color when I'm playing the jhala to, create a different kind of energy. You have seen many sitarists play with only one hand and all that, that chamak, what we say, exuberance in music. So I'm just using my circular breathing technique only to do that. It's not to create a world record or something, because many people have done that. You can just hold a note for a long time and then say I can hold the note for a long time, but then there is no musicality in it. So I generally use that only in the jhala portion. So that, but what people observe during that point is that I'm playing only with one hand. So they think I'm playing one-handed flute. What is important is that I'm circulating my breath and only that one note is continuously going in that jhala. So, as instrumentalists, we have to acquire several things from several people to make our repertoire different from what others have done. So that is my effort.
Yeah, actually, this was one point which I have also observed in your concerts where you play with that one hand. Many times I have observed, because I have attended many of your concerts and I have seen that. And as you said, see, this is the main concept of me doing interviews with senior musicians like you, is to understand the things. Many times we, as I said in the earlier part, that we come to a concert, we just listen to what the artist sings or performs, just listen to their music, but we don't go to the things which really works to bring that good music on the stage. There are so many things which goes into that maybe 1 hour of concert. You have to put so many hours of riyaz, you have to put so much of thinking into that. That normally audience don't understand. As artists, we know what goes behind performance. People will come and enjoy the 1 hour performance and go off, but we know that what goes behind it. So this is the main reason why I wanted to this interview sessions to reach to people, that what goes behind an artist performing so well on the stage. Because as an artist, I understand that this people should know that as my Guruji always used to say, when we go to the stage, we have so many things to think about. We have to think what raga we are performing. We have to see what is the mic, the acoustics is. We have to see who is accompanying us. We have to see whether physically we are fit. Whether we have to see whether mentally we are calm. I mean, there are so many things which goes into a performance. So people may not know because it's just not visible to them. So that is the prime reason why I started this session, so that people will come to know why now, as you said about that one-handed, people will know now and they will start observing that what you're doing. It's not just one-handed and कुछ style नहीं हो रहा है उधर. Some show off is not going on there. It's something which is really musical which is going on there. So this is the main reason. So thank you for explaining that to all our viewers. The next question is your second part of learning from Vidwan Anur Anantakrishna Sharma sir. We know that Shivu sir is just an awesome musician. We all know about him. So what was your real purpose of learning the Laikari aspect? One is definitely to improve your repertoire and but how you have incorporated that into your music, that we would like to know.
See, when I after finishing my engineering, when I came to Bangalore, I was exposed to Carnatic music, the best of Carnatic music, and I started playing Jugalbandi. So during these Jugalbandis, I realized that I was handicapped in that Laikari aspect. Well, I could do tihais because I understood the tihais, and I could construct my own tihais and play them. But something to do impromptu online, what I call as online Laikari. If you're given a phrase, then deduce it, break it down into pieces, and then make different mathematical arrangements, and create what you call as different sets of arithmetic combinations, and that really amazed me. And I kept wondering how many years might these people have practiced together this particular phrase to play it so effortlessly. So then I realized that they wouldn't have practiced together. It is basically those basics that they have about the Laikari, which makes it easier for them to just jam there, just come together. And the first palla when he plays, then the second and third palla, they already know that this is what is going to happen. And the other greatest thing that I realized when I met my guru was that you can actually visualize the matras and the sub matras. That was a revelation for me. We are so used to playing for the theka. Unless we hear the dhatin tinta, we don't know whether we are near. We know only that, we are near the khali. So how to come to some is how we are trained. That is our upbringing. Now, without any theka, just by giving the first matra, dha, then you play a phrase for so many aksharas, and you know exactly which akshara you are, which sub matra you are. So that was a new learning for me. Then I decided, no, I cannot take chances, and to understand all those Tishra and Khanda and all that, I have to undergo a training and learn the basics. So that's how I ended up under Anurji. And my Guruji is again a versatile musician. He's a composer, he's a singer, and he's a mridangam, tabla artist and everything. So it became easier for me to, and most of our classes were during performances. So he started taking me with him for most of his concerts, Jugalbandis and all. And then that is where he used to come up with a new composition, a new Pallavi. And then he would, while the other musician is performing, he would gradually, guide me to make variations and try to. So it opened up a complete new world for me. And then I decided that this part can also be sunken into our Hindustani stream as the Laikari part, where a different kind of Laikari can be also played. Not that it is not there in Hindustani, but for me it was completely new. Many musicians have done that in the past, but for me it was a new learning. So now my music is totally based on Kirana Gharana's Gaiki on one side, but then also the Tantrakari style, the Alap Jod Chala of the Sitar Khani style, and then added with the laikari of Carnatic music to a little extent.
I mean, we all know you as a versatile artist, composer. You have done many Jugalbandi concerts with many artists. Even you have played with the one and only Ustad Zakir Hussain Saab. You have done many collaborations with Western musicians. You have your own fusion band, which is Krishna, which is called as Krishna.
Yeah.
I mean, you have done so many things. You have composed music for albums. You have composed music for many TV serials. We know you as one of the best composers that we have. So when you play these classical music concerts and when you play the fusion concerts like the Krishna band, what you have, I know Krishna has all Indian Western music also combined. When you for an artist, when he plays both, how it is important for an artist to keep separation of a fusion concert not overlapping the classical concert?
Yeah, very good question and very pertinent also in these times, because I see many of the younger generation, very bright young talent, losing their path midway, because what is important is to have a very good foundation in one or the other arts, whether it is Hindustani, Carnatic, in a sound and a very robust foundation in one of the classical music streams. And when you do fusion, we generally, my idea of fusion is it has to 70% of it has to belong to one particular stream of classical, either Western classical or Hindustani or Carnatic, and the rest 30% can be additions or top-ups with different genres of music. In my Krishna fusion band, you see that it's totally based on ragas. So even if I name it as Krishna, a composition in Bhoop, the entire composition, whether I play it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, it is completely Bhupali only. I never deviate from it. My band also, I don't allow my keyboard players to completely stray away from Bhupali, go into some other zone. Even if they play solos, it has to be in Bhupali. So it is completely raga based. And just by using Western instruments, you cannot create a fusion. That is one confusion that most people have. Just by bringing in Western instruments and Western aspects, it doesn't become a fusion. It has to have some right ingredients in the right proportion. And as far as the question about working in different zones, like when I'm playing for a classical concert, I'm a completely classical musician. When I sit between two tanpuras, it's just that I'm a classical flutist. So I have to completely barricade myself from everything else. And when I'm in the studios working for some films, some entertainment and stuff like that, different blowing technique, different flute and different positioning of the sa transpose, and it's a total different. There I'm more like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, what I'm asked to do by the music. Or when I'm collaborating with some other fusion band, or when I'm collaborating with even in a Jugalbandi, my personal belief, it begins on a compromise. Unless the artist is willing to compromise, no Jugalbandi can be successful. So there also we cut corners and try to create a conversation so that the entire Jugalbandi sounds like a one big nice presentation. So the artist has to have those compartments. This is classical, so I'm only stick to classical. So it is difficult, but not impossible. Many people have done that, so I have also managed. When I began, there were many people who were saying, "Oh, you are playing in films, how you lose your classical music, the taste for it. And it is, if you keep on doing your riyaz regularly, no matter what you do outside, for your earning, for your livelihood. For me, commercial music was my livelihood. Classical music was for my personal peace and happiness. And eventually, classical music became my mainstay. And now the commercial music is a supporting thing. That is what ideally should happen to every musician.
Because as you said, I have also seen many musicians. The fusion part is so strong that sometimes that part comes into their classical concept. The serious music which is going on, suddenly that portion comes, and it becomes a bit of a थोड़ा वो अलग से लगता है. That's the reason we find that something is.
The musician shouldn't get carried away. That is very essential. तो उसके लिए बहुत साधना करना पड़ता है कि you have to keep your thoughts in control, just not carried away by what you have done in other streams.
You are known for innovations and sorry, did I cut you?
No, go ahead.
Sorry. You are known for innovations always, whether it is the flutes, the flute where you have made one 8-foot contrabass flute, and the J-shaped flute which we were talking earlier for the bass notes. Just yesterday we had one new thing coming out of your basket, which is the Jogini. Which is a Jogan's prayer. You and Ojas Bhai have collaborated, and yesterday it has been unveiled to the public. Can you just speak a little bit about Jogini?
See, Jogini, I came up with that idea because essentially I was looking for a composition where I can play a different jati, For a long time now, I have been playing the Tishra Rupak, which was initially performed by Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and then of late we've been seeing Ustad Shahid Parvez ji playing it regularly, and he's doing an amazing job. He's playing the Tishra in a very, very, very easy way. It's actually very complex arithmetic pattern. It sounds so easy. So I wanted to come up with something in the Khanda Jati of Rupak. So then the Khanda Jati is a Rupak of 7 beats. The total Aksharas is 35. So if you have something like 14, 28 or 32, then the mathematics becomes easier. But when you have something like 35, to bring out a composition which is uniform and which sounds simple to when you hear it. So I was... that was going on in my head for almost a year and a half now. How to bring out the Khanda Jati also, into play. So then I came up with this phrase. I thought let us do it in joke. And then I wanted something in consonant. So we have ga ma ga sa ni sa ni pa. I thought can match. So that is how jog with a nishad. So that is why I called Jogini. And then it also, Jogini means Jogan. So it's a Jogan's prayer because jog with an added ni is what I thought. The general joke that we hear is with only one Komal Nishad. And the Shuddha Nishad is not generally used. So I thought jog with a Komal Shuddha Nishad can become Jogini. And so these two aspects, and then the harmony, of course. I have done that in the past, but here again I could use that J flute or the alto bansuri that I have tried. So I am trying to create a bass line or something like a bass guitar, and on top of that create layers of the. So all the friends who have joined us today, you can check it out on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. You can type in Jogini and watch it. It's quite interesting. And Ojas Bhai has done an amazing job. He grasped the composition and he has played a solo in the end. It's come out really nice, I think.
Correct. Yeah, there is one question which has been repeated here. Uh, Hello,
Yeah, tell me.
can you hear me? Yeah, one
Yes, yes.
question which is repeated here, repeatedly being asked. Sir, why usually flute teacher asked to play sa for a long time? Why not re or ga?
Well, sa is the basic note, shadaj or the sa shadja is is the embodiment of music. It is omkara. So if you are able to play sa perfectly tuned in with the tanpura, then playing other notes is or understanding the other notes is easy. If you want, you can play it on ga as well. You can play it re. If it's only the breath control that you want to practice, you can. But when you play sa with a tanpura, the peace, the tranquility, the spirituality that you and the happiness that you derive is totally different when you play with others. When you play sa for some time and then play ga, then also it is fine. It depends on what actually you want to do. If it's just about notes, any note is fine. Okay, if you want to extend your breath, but I would prefer sa for everybody in the beginning because it means a lot. Even in classical music, the more you sustain your sa, whether it's lower sa or higher sa, in perfect tune, then the aura is totally different.
Yes. Correct. Can you please explain a little bit about the contrabass flute, that 8-feet one which you have invented?
Yeah, I happened to see the first contrabass when I attended the World Flute Festival in Argentina. I was hearing this very sub-bass frequency. There it was completely flutists on the stage. There were like 15, 16 flutists with various kinds of flutes. They also have this alto flute, wherein it is a U-shaped flute, so that they can reach lower notes. But beyond that, there was something that was coming very in a low, very very low frequency. And then when I looked at that orchestra in the behind, I see this long flute, a person standing and playing. And incidentally, one of my friends and my Guruji's disciple and his partner from Amsterdam, Ned, he had come down to Bangalore with contrabass. He's an exceptional player. So we did a lot of jugalbandis and trios with K. Pranesh sir. So I had this great opportunity, and it was a great honor to work with him and actually see the contrabass from close quarters. And I was really impressed, and I just wanted to have that instrument and try Indian ragas on it. So I purchased the contrabass from Ned from Amsterdam, and then he also guided me about the notes and how to produce them. And it took me a total different. It took me almost 2 years to master it, because as you know, I hold my flute the right hand on top, but to play the Western instrument you have to hold the left hand on top. So my saregama became padanisa, the padanisa became saregama, so it was like writing with the left hand again. So it took me some time, but then it gives a different feel. But the only thing is that it needs proper acoustics and complete silence and very hi-fi sound systems at the bass frequencies are heard properly. And it has got a limited usage, but I really enjoy playing that.
Praveenji, as we are coming to an end, almost 5 minutes remain. Many people have asked, to play something. There are, I think, some few people. One person has asked for Yaman, and one person has asked for Bhairavi. So, whichever, you feel if you can play a little bit, people will enjoy it. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Praveen ji. Thank you so much for such a lovely time we all had, and for a wonderful end with such a soothing Yaman. I mean, the king of ragas.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again, and thank you all the audience for joining us for this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dhananjay. It was my pleasure to be talking to you, and all the best for all the future episodes of musical.
सालों से बस एक ऐसे केस की तलाश थी